Hello everybody and welcome to Homestead for a Living. We have our very noisy but very helpful employees coming out here today, and what they're doing is working on a new market garden site. I've enticed them with a little bit of grain, which is really easy. Once they're well trained, they'll just come wherever I want and they'll start getting to work doing what I want them to do. So right now they're clearing out the ticks out of here for me because I'm going to be doing a lot of work in here and I don't want Lyme disease. And they very much enjoy removing ticks because they're a tasty treat for them. And they're of course doing what they do best, which is eating stuff and then pooping right where I want them to poop. And the reason I want some poop here is because this is our new market garden site. After our test run this week of our CSA and our farm stand, Gabby and I feel pretty confident in expanding our market garden operation. And so stepping that up to a new level and really looking for some much larger production means carefully selecting a site. So in this video, I want to talk about why we selected this site, the factors that play into that, and then also talk about what we're going to be doing to make this site a really good market farm. Because right now what we have is some really kind of rough soil. It's not great. It's not terrible, but it's not great. What this site here was about 10 to 15 year growth of scrubby little trees like you see. Used to be a cattle pasture before that, and it's high up on a hill, so it's pretty dry, it's pretty clay, but at least we had some growth of these trees that kind of remedied that soil a little bit and started to loosen it up again and get some root structure down there. So it's middle of the road, it's okay, but not great. So we're gonna need to do a lot of work on this site to really make it work. But let's talk about first why we chose this site. So first of all, it's gently sloping, so that's going to make it pretty easy to work with, but mainly it's the proximity we have. I can of course clear out any of these trees that I need to open up any of the light I need, which I like because I can select and choose where to leave some trees. I like to leave big deciduous trees dead south of the garden, because one big deciduous tree in the direct south means that it'll get shaded at the hottest part of the day. And in Tennessee, that's kind of necessary because, or it at least cuts down on your water, because everything gets so hot at that time of day. I want my plants to get tons of morning sun and tons of afternoon sun, but not tons of noon or early afternoon sun. But the really big reason was proximity to water. We don't have a lot of good water on this site, and so we rely on water catchments. We have these tanks, and we're going to be catching water off of this Mennonite building here that we bought, which is a storage building. And it's got a lot of good metal that the water is running off of. We're also going to be expanding that building with some lean-tos, so that'll really add to our catchment area. And then we also have our chicken and rabbit housing right here. And so that means our manure is right there, our water is right there, and that's the perfect storm. We can really, and these guys are right here too, so we can easily get these birds to come over and do what we want and prepare the site for us. So great proximity, close to the house too. So given that there's a lot of maintenance involved, daily work in a market garden farm, it makes that really easy. It's just an easy walk over here. Really kind of the perfect proximity. It really lines up. And originally we were saving this site for a greenhouse, a high tunnel from Farmer's Friend, and we'll still be doing that. But essentially we're just gonna go ahead and start the market garden there, and then we'll build a high tunnel kind of around it, just because time is of the essence, and we really don't need a high tunnel until later in the year. And so that was the reason for our site selection. And so what we're doing is, this is our first intervention here, is bringing these birds in to start transferring some of that grain that I buy into manure and layering it down for me. And of course eating all of the bugs as well. And the next step we will do today, and we've already been doing a little bit, is start to lay down a cover crop. And all I'm doing for that is just clover. I just walk through with clover right before a heavy rain, and I just throw it in the ground. I don't do any planting or tilling or anything like that. I just toss it in there. Ideally, these guys are already laying down some good manure to help give that clover a good boost. But a good heavy rain, I've found, just drives it right into the soil and has no trouble growing. And so that clover is a nitrogen fixer. It will right away start taking all the sunlight that just got opened up because we cleared it, and it'll start converting that into, it'll start photosynthesizing and doing really good work for our soil. And also clover is a crop for us. We make our clover jelly out of it, which is really tasty, and we included that in our last CSA batch, so it's a sellable crop, and it's a great high protein feed for our birds and for our rabbits. So clover is just a super, super crop. All I do is I just go to the co-op and I buy the deer clover. Different clover has different purposes. It'll all work, and you can just buy the mixes. But white Dutch clover is real small and doesn't get very tall. So that's good if you don't want it to be like reaching over your market garden. But what we're doing here is different. We're gonna do crimson clover and big tall clover, because I like it to get real big, and then I chop and drop it, and it makes a really nice mulch layer. It means you have to kind of maintain it and keep it down so it doesn't block sunlight for your other plants. But to me, that maintenance is worth it, because basically I'm just choosing my weed, and my weed that I'm choosing is clover, which is super useful. It's not really even a weed. So that's our step two, is, I guess, step three. Step one was, of course, clearing the site. Step two is getting these guys on it. And step three is laying the cover crop, which in our case is just clover, just keeping it really simple and easy. Then after that, we're going to be layering really thickly any kind of organic matter we can get our hands on. We go to the sawmill, we buy sawdust for 20 bucks a load. I'll do layers and layers of that. I get good organic hay. If I can get any, sometimes I'm able to get spoiled hay that doesn't have, sorry about the rooster, that doesn't have persistent herbicides. I'll lay that, any good, safe, clean hay that I can. Chopped up leaves, anything like that. And then of course, all the manure from that chicken and that rabbit housing, it's gonna get piled on here really quickly. And the idea is we'll just get a layered down, kind of an informal lasagna style method. And then we will wait until it's at a proper level. And I feel pretty confident that we can get this in by fall, which is fine because we already have some market garden sites going. We just want to expand as quickly as possible. Now, if I really wanted to step it up in speed, I would just simply do 18-day compost, make lots of compost really quickly, and then till it in. But I'd like to just do no-till right from the beginning, especially since we're not in a huge hurry again, since I do already have some other market garden beds going. So that's it. That's all we're gonna do. We're not gonna be dealing with any plastics. I'm not laying down any cardboard. I'm not doing a ton of weed suppression because I'm just gonna have so much mulch laid down that's gonna do most of our weed suppression. And I'll continue to layer clover in there because I'm gonna cover a lot of that clover up with my inputs, and that might seem kind of inefficient, but clover is cheap and it takes me time to get these inputs together. So it'll just start coming up, and then I'll layer it and it'll start coming up again. I'll layer more, and that way, like, ideally we'll just have a ton of clover going on in here. I'll also put a lot of dandelion in here. I keep propagating dandelion throughout the property as quickly as I can. It's another great dynamic accumulator. And we might do some comfrey in here as well, but we have a lot of other areas we're doing comfrey in. So still, clover is really the primary cover crop that we're doing because it's just a plant that I love to work with. It's so convenient, has so many uses. We use it over and over and over again in the farm. The whole time it's enriching our soil. It's easy to, you could farm without a tool because you can just pull it right out with your hands. It comes out in clumps and you can throw it down as a mulch. Super awesome plant. So yeah, just to recap, we clear the spot, we bring the animals in, start doing further clearing, and of course that would, if you had goats or hogs or something, depending on what you're doing, you might bring them in to do different things. You know, if you had a lot of brambles to get rid of or something like that, goats would be handy. But we don't need too much of that because this site isn't too bad. So these chickens and ducks will do a good job for us. Then we lay down our cover crop. Then we lay down our mulch and kind of interchange the two. I'll add some mulch, I'll add some cover crop, add some mulch, add some cover crop. And then we just watch the site until it feels about ready to plant. And even if it's not perfectly ready to plant, there are a lot of things, if they're already seedlings, we can go ahead and just plant in the ground. We can just kind of dig a shovel width hole, amend that one spot, and plant, say, a tomato or a pepper, and it's gonna grow fine. When it reaches that native soil that's maybe not perfectly improved, it's still gonna get some benefit from that soil, but it'll also have it can lean on all of the inputs that you put in that shovel-sized hole. And then, of course, everything breaking down around it from all of the mulch will continue to improve that soil really quickly. So ideally, we'll never touch this soil with a tiller, and it will never be disturbed. There'll be a good base layer underneath, and then everything we amend on top of that. So that's about it for this site. And so hopefully this will be a super productive market garden site. It'll go about 100 feet back. And when we're ready, we're gonna build a high tunnel just kind of over the site. We'll have areas in front of it where we'll continue to grow outside of the high tunnel. But a lot of this will become a Farmer's Friend high tunnel, which is 14 by 100, so that we could do year-round production of greens, kale. Most of the year we can do tomatoes and things like that. So that'll really enable us to stretch out the CSA to a year-round model because I want our customers to really rely on us for food regularly, not just to be a token kind of thing that they get occasionally. So I hope that's useful for anybody that's planning a garden or a market garden farm or any size operation, and hopefully there's some useful tips in there. In the meantime, everybody, stay safe, be well, and happy homesteading.